Good morning, everybody. Glad to be back with you this Saturday morning. My name's Ed Samuel. I'm a career coach with a firm called Sam Nova. We're based in Kennett Square, PA, and serve clients in the greater Philadelphia area and across the U.S. I hope and pray that you and your family are safe in the midst of this pandemic. More changes seem to be in store from all sides. So continue to be smart. And working virtually may be around for a lot longer than we think. So just keep at it. Well, let's get at it this morning. We're going to continue our Career Spotlight series. I'm talking to people from all walks that have landed in a career that finally seems to resonate with them in all ways. It's not only the end destination, but about their journey, the twists, the turns, the stumbles, maybe the scars, the perseverance, the resilience, the risk-taking, faith, and how to start to give back, and so much more. So this morning, I'm honored to talk to a gentleman named Eddie Dunn. Truly an honor. Eddie Dunn is an award-winning national thought leader, speaker, and author in the military transition space. He designed and led one of the most successful veteran employment initiatives in U.S. history, the Veteran Jobs Mission, where he recruited 120 Fortune 500 companies in a national coalition, resulting in 140,000 veteran hires in less than 3 years. Now, over 200 plus companies later, and 650 veterans have been hired. It's that particular program has received national recognition, and he's on his way to helping 1 million vets get hired. In addition, Eddie also designed and led a CEO-sponsored veteran employment initiative for another Fortune 500 company, achieving the coveted #1 military-friendly employer program in the nation against 16,000 other competitors that same year. Now, in this third act, Eddie leads a dynamic talent management consulting firm that bridges the gap between veterans and employers, and is getting ready to launch his new nonprofit, Civilian Ready, on day one, a reboot camp transformation process for veterans. Eddie hails from the greater New York City area. Eddie, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks for having me.
I always love to start at the beginning. Just tell us a little bit about, just where you're from. Where's home?
Well, originally I started out as a military brat. I was actually an Army brat. Was born in Clark Air Force Base in Manila, Philippines. But I call New Jersey home. But I was in 11 different schools where I graduated high school. Lived all over the world. Had one sister that was born in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, another sister born in Schofield, Hawaii. I was born in Clark Air Force Base, and another sister born in New York. So I've been a world traveler since I was a little kid, but New Jersey is home.
Wow. Well, one thing you and I both have in common, my wife was born on the island of Guam as part of the military. So we'll see how that connection continues. So you started your career in the military. 20 years, I understand you were there. Tell us a little bit about what you did in the military.
Yeah, so I served in the famed 82nd Airborne Division as a young paratrooper and logistician. Spent 3 years there, got out, and went into the Army Reserves, where I later became a parachute rigger and jump master in my career. Did that for 20 plus. I did that for a little over 20 years, total cumulative service. Was downrange, as we say in the military, in OIF 2 in 2004. And then I actually was down in Ground Zero before that, serving down there when everything jumped off with 9/11. So that's it in a nutshell for my military career. Just interesting, circuitous, roundabout way from my military career. A lot of people either do a lot of active duty or a lot of reserve time, but I finished out my career out of the Army Reserves.
Gotcha. I always like to ask veterans this question, while you served, what do you think the top two accomplishments were that you achieved? When
I thought about my career in this context, it's an interesting feel. one of the hardest schools I ever went to was becoming an Army jump master. As maybe some of your audience, the folks who've been Army veterans, and if there's even a couple of jump masters and maybe listening to this in the podcast later on, that is one of the most difficult schools in the entire military. So I was very fortunate to get through jump master school. And then I held the position as first sergeant. I was an enlisted guy, but when you hold the position of first sergeant, it is a very prestigious role in the Army. It's a very revered position because with it comes a lot of respect and a lot of responsibility. So that was a very proud moment in my career.
Wow. And I would imagine in that role, any kind of a mistake could cost a life. So the pressure on you had to be fairly amazing.
It really was. You in a jump master role, you realize that their lives are in your hands. You put young paratroopers and paratroopers out the door too soon, they can hit another aircraft. If you put them out too late, they miss the drop zone and can get injured. There was a lot of responsibility, life and death, no question.
Wow. One question I have for you, one last question on the military aspect. What's the one trait that you think the military has kind of brought out in you that you always had, but really allowed you to shine, Eddie?
More than anything else, I think most veterans in general have this very deep reservoir, Ed, of resilience, and what I would call resilience coupled with selfless service. It's a very unique attribute of most veterans, especially those who've been in combat. That particular, we have the very unique ability to reach down and get it, right? To reach down and get what you need, that extra reservoir of energy, of competence, of the type of resilience you need to accomplish a mission. That's very unique to the military mindset. It's very unique to veterans specifically. And it's something that I've learned. It's built into our DNA. And it's been something that has carried me throughout my career.
Beautiful. Now, you went to college. Tell us a little bit about, where did you go and what you get your degree in? Why did you pick that particular career focus and degree?
Yeah, I came off active duty and I started using my GI Bill back in that day, come up and started going to school. I took the long circuitous route to finish my degree. Went to Nyack College. I got a degree in organizational management. It was one of the smartest things I ever did. Nyack's a great little college right outside of New York City, and it was an extraordinary time of polishing what I knew to be true. In my civilian career, I was in the HR business, mostly organizational design, but getting that degree gave me a great foundation. It polished off what I already knew, gave me a lot of thinking around how to do all the design work I've done since then. So I got my money's worth, and I put myself through school, by the way. I paid my way through college. I did the long route of going part-time for several years before I finished up.
Well, you and I both have that in common, by the way. Interesting.
So we might find at the end of the time that we're related in some way, Ed. So you never know when we get to that.
But then you made the shift into corporate America, and you were with a few firms. Can you kind of walk us through those 4 firms and what you did there?
Yeah, so I cut my teeth at Novartis Pharmaceutical. That's where I learned all my HR along when I was going to college. And I did all my HR work, organizational design work, as I had mentioned in my organizational management college career, going through that. So from there, I cut all my teeth there. I headed an HR function with Fisher Clinical. And then I did something kind of crazy at that time. I went off on my own and started consulting. Again, there were early signs everywhere about this entrepreneurial spirit in me. And I had gone out on my own, but I was minding my own business, and I had a consultant friend of mine, call me up one day, says, Eddie, they're doing this thing over at JP Morgan Chase. It's called at the time, it was called the 100,000 Jobs Mission. It was renamed Veteran Jobs Mission later on. And he says, Eddie, I know you're in the military, and we were doing a lot of business together. And he says, you need to check out what they're doing. And 6 weeks later, Ed, I got hired on with JP Morgan to help run what's now called the Veteran Jobs Mission. So from there, that was an extraordinary pivot point for myself in my career in creating that program. I was one of the original architects that helped design that. And then from there, after it hit that 120,000 mark, we were supposed to hire originally the original remit of that particular role I was in was supposed to hire 100,000 veterans by 2020. Which is this year.
Wow.
But we did it in less than 3 years' time, and it's gone on to 650,000 hires plus and counting, and it's on its way to 1 million. So from there,
wow.
I went to a place called Marsh & McLennan. There was another Fortune 100 company, terrific CEO-sponsored program called the Veteran Talent Initiative. Great support there, and we took that program to number one in the entire country in less than 3 years' time. So from there, it was just significant roles every step of the way. Learned a lot in each step of the way.
You know, that's just amazing, the amount of lives impacted. But then, you know, what happened? There had to have been a point where you said to corporate America, stop. And that drive inside you to kind of do this, what I would call an encore career now, and break away. You know, tell us a little bit about, you know, how and why you did that.
Well, it's an interesting story. So I was presenting, and this is a catalytic moment. It's encore, yes, totally agree. But it was really the catalyst that pushed me out of corporate America, and it was this. I was in front of a senior leader in a company that will remain nameless, talking to the senior leader, presenting a Harvard MBA, Naval Academy, 10 years experience, extra master's degree, 10 years operations experience, presenting it for an operations role where I thought it was a slam dunk. And with a straight face, Ed, this leader said to me that he doesn't have the domain experience I'm looking for. And in that moment, after I picked my jaw off the ground, I quickly recovered, started talking about learning agilities and what part of a Harvard MBA pedigree you don't understand and everything else in that. But at the end of the day, I realized something. And it was the catalytic moment that set off a series of events, Ed, that pushed me to start my own consulting firm. And here I am today.
Wow. You know, because I'm a career coach and we've talked about this privately in the past, I see that mistake happen a lot with vets who come to me who happen to be working, but very underemployed from my perspective because of that very thinking. They might get hired, but not certainly at the leadership level they deserve. So I see that just in the world that I live. So now tell us a little bit about Eddie Dunn Consulting. Tell us a little about your mission and who are your hungry fish, maybe in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, so thank you for allowing me this. This is going to maybe sound a little bit like a PSA, but it's one of those areas where my purpose and passion converged into a consulting practice. And was one of these ideas where I knew I was a subject matter expert, but would anybody actually pay me for my expertise? Right? Big question. I had broad knowledge of the space, and I cut across several different verticals. In the consulting space, you typically will focus on a particular vertical, which is typically an industry, right? But because I have a functional horizontal practice that cuts across multiple, I have a broader scope of knowledge. So what that means specifically is that how do you take that knowledge, apply it across several industries, and make a living at it? So I took and curated the very best practices because of the inner knowledge of being in corporate America for the last 10 years, very specifically becoming that subject matter expert. I began to evolve my practice around core areas, how to really drive and build and design an award-winning talent strategy for veterans. You know, there's the fundamentals around specifically as it relates to how to create talent advocacy in a corporate setting, right? How do you do that? There are very specific steps best practices, and knowledge and skills and abilities that I have to help clients do that. I'm currently working with several clients, typically in the areas of DoD Skill Bridge. Has been a very big trend right now in military internships. And I'm also working with employee resource groups, veterans specifically, veteran employee resource groups, and coalescing them into mini coalitions to make broader impacts locally. So those are the kind of bleeding edge things I've been working on, and it's been a really great drive so far in growing my practice.
Eddie, do you have clients across the U.S.? Are you geographically driven? To share a little bit on that.
Yeah, I'm not geographically driven, although I will tell you I am, one of my clients is, a Fortune 7 company up in Minnesota. And then I also have another client. I have several clients up in the Boston, Cambridge area. But I do work nationally across the country. It's, as you well know, our whole world has changed with COVID. And so with that said, I can, all I need is a telephone and internet connection. I'm good. So, travel when I need to, but there is quite a bit of work out there. And I'm finding that people are getting more and more hungry for this type of work. Post COVID-19, and specifically as it relates to, post George Floyd, people are looking, and corporations are looking at their I&D space and equating the value of bringing in more veterans as a result.
Wow. If you think about COVID-19 is just a challenge in itself, but vets specifically, what do you think the two biggest challenges are out there right now for vets when it comes to the job market and improving their career or landing that first job out of the military?
I think the biggest.
I'm asking for two.
Yeah, this is a Pandora's box. I can spend a whole hour just talking about this, but
I know you and me both. But
yeah, I know. I will tell you probably the biggest, and it's not advice, but maybe it's the biggest challenge I'm seeing where it's many transitioning service members, veterans 1 to 2 years out, and military spouses are woefully underprepared. Meaning that, and so here's the dichotomy. There are 45,000 veteran serving organizations. There's government. There's overabundance of resources out there, yet they're still coming out so woefully underprepared that they don't quite understand. And I really fundamentally believe it comes down to the core value of the psychology of reentry, if I can kind of throw that out there. And that kind of tees up where my nonprofit's going. And what I've learned over the years as a coach, I have a pro bono coaching practice. I constantly have between 3 and 5 veterans that I'm coaching on a regular basis. They come in and out of my life on a regular basis. It's either a mentoring type thing or one other thing that I'm doing with them. But I would say they're woefully underprepared, and they're not teachable at times, because they're taught one way to do something and they're hyper focused on a resume when they don't understand how to network. It's a myriad of things, but I would say those are the two things that stand out in my mind.
Yeah, I know when I worked with vets in the past, Eddie, they had a hard time translating their military their military accomplishments or their work responsibilities into a private industry set of accomplishments, right?
Right.
But
exactly.
Now, one last question here, and it has two parts to it. What's the one bit of advice you give an employer who wants to hire a vet today? That's part one. What would that advice be from you?
Yeah, I will be, and this is the unvarnished truth, so I want to make sure people are aware of that. And this is my 10 years, actually 20 years experience talking about this, because I've been in the HR side. I've been on the back end and the back office and seeing everything from that perch for 20 plus years now, 10 years in the last veteran transition space. And it's this. Most veteran programs are not sustainable. They're just not. One, because there's two things going on. Most employers who are looking to hire veterans are looking to do the right thing and the smart thing. right? The right thing to do is to really look at the veteran talent as something that has value. They have the skills, knowledge, and abilities to do the job. The smart thing is finding ways to sustain the program over time. And that is really built around the idea of a significant change management culture initiatives that align to these advocacy approaches for each of your D&I talent segments. So what are we really, and I'll give you a crisp example of that, right? Unconscious bias. Big area, right? And a lot of times veteran candidates are overlooked because we think of unconscious bias in the context of African Americans, Hispanics, all those types of other talent demographics where it's more pronounced. But when you look at veterans, there's the unconscious bias towards post-traumatic stress. There's the unconscious bias that, well, they're not educated enough to do my job, so they can't be smart enough, and therefore I'm not going to, hire them. The other unconscious bias is how much work I have to put in to translate their skills, and it's just not worth my time. I have better candidates than them. So those are three big areas that are material in the context of reaching this population in such a way that they bring value to the organization.
Great. Well, you answered more than you answered all three parts of my two-part question. Very telling. So if somebody wanted to, if I was an employer listening, or a vet, what's the best way for people to find you and get a hold of you, Eddie?
So EddieDunnConsulting.com is my website. You can ping me there. You can get me at EddieDunnConsulting.com. That's Eddie, EDDIE, at EddieDunnConsulting.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn very easily. I practically live and breathe on LinkedIn all the time, interacting and doing that. So there's several Eddie Dunns. I'm the good-looking guy you'll find there, so you'll be able to find me there. But those are the three ways to get me.
All right. Well, hey, Eddie, thank you so much for talking with us this morning. I'm looking forward to continuing to collaborate with you in some way in the years ahead. And thank you for your service. Thank you for what you've done for the vets. And appreciate you being on the program.
Yeah. Could I plug the last 20 seconds? Do we have any extra time left?
Not really, but I'll give it to you.
So just so the nonprofit, and this is the other half of my consulting practice, it's called Civilian Ready on Day One. It's a reboot camp transformation process for veterans. It's an extension of all my thoughts and all my experience going into the psychology of reentry. Something I'd love to talk to you offline about, Ed, and how I'm using coaches and I'm enabling the ecosystem to be more rigorous than it is. But more on that another time. But I appreciate giving me the last 20 seconds. Great.
Well, we're just about, out of time. For those new to the program, I did publish my first book at the end of 2019 called Optimize Your Resume, Do's and Don'ts the Sam Nova Way. It's available on our secure website at www.samnova.com. Or you can also order it via Amazon, but they're taking a little bit longer shipping it because of COVID. If I'm certainly on LinkedIn, I have 24,000 connections. If you're listening today and you're not connected to me, all you have to do is Google Ed Samuel, career coach, LinkedIn, and I should come up as the first item on the Google search. Ed Samuel, career coach, LinkedIn. Connect with me. On LinkedIn, I typically will post all my speaking engagements, and I have no less than 6 coming up. I think the next speaking engagement is this coming December 1st. There'll be noon to 1 with the International Association of Business Communicators. I'll be talking about best practices to optimize your career during COVID-19. And Eddie, this would have interest in. You would have interest in on Tuesday, December 9th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. I'll be actually talking to veterans across the U.S. who are members of a very fast-growing, meritorious organization. It's called. I'll be talking to that group about best practices to optimize your career. again on Tuesday, 12/9. So again, connect with me on LinkedIn and follow my post. This is Ed Samuel, career coach with Sam Nova. If you would like to reach me with a question or comment, email me at esamuel@samnovainc.com or just call our main number at 610-274-8214. Have a great Saturday. Stay safe and God bless.